Okay, there we go. My chat box popped up, so if y'all have questions, you can go ahead and chime in. All right, so Happy New Year. I'm excited to start off 2022, and I'm ecstatic to have whoever is on the call live with me and whoever will see this via recording. Make sure if you come in and are seeing this via recording that you go ahead and say something in the comments as well, because I'll monitor those and answer questions as excuse me, as we go. So what I'm launching here is effectively a very robust, comprehensive training in the form of, let's call it, a roadmap on how to be very successful with real estate investing. To be perfectly candid, it's going to go slower than it could go if you were in some sort of coaching program. Preferably mine, doesn't have to be mine, but I'm only going to do this once a week. I'm going to choose one topic a week. It gives you a chance to maybe watch the replay a couple times and come up with questions. If you have questions, go ahead, drop them into the chat and I'll answer them, and we'll try to get you calibrated well so that you can perform. And perform means make money. Okay, that's really what the end game is here. But I would say that because a lot of us have a lot of life left. I'm 54. I might not have as much life left as the rest of you guys. Some might say I'm past my prime. But at this, having done this for 30 years, one good thing about real estate skills versus athletic skills, or business skills versus athletic skills, is they tend to get better and better with age. And I think I've curated quite a program here over 30 years where, I used to think that I was curating a jump shot and, a crossover dribble. Well, you can curate that for a few years, but then the next thing you know, you got younger guys running past you on the court. So I think we'll stick with trying to improve in the business skills front and just have as much fun athletically as possible. But this program is going to give you a very, very robust understanding of how we do deals. And the way I'm going to structure this is over 21 weeks. So, approximately 5 months of training. Along the way, if you want to jump on a Zoom call and look into potentially getting into the coaching, which is a much more accelerated path, we go much deeper, much more granular into these concepts. We can certainly do that. I'm not hard to find if you want to set that call up with me personally. Now, I use this metaphor of a roadmap, and I want to be really, really clear that it's one thing to get directions. It's another thing to have what I like to call GPS level guidance. Okay? I'm going to give you a roadmap, and you can follow that roadmap and you can make money. Just like in the old days when we would drive from point A to point B, maybe a lot of you traveled over the holiday, you can get from, your house to grandma's house over the hill through the mountains using a roadmap. However, at least the way I remember driving in that fashion without a GPS, before GPS, it was fraught with peril. Okay, you had anxiety. Did we miss the exit? You've got, a loved one clamoring at you. I think it was back there. You missed the exit. You're an idiot. There's a lot of anxiety that occurs on those drives, right? It wasn't something that you looked forward to. And that's because you're following a roadmap and you don't have the level of guidance that is dynamic, like a GPS. GPS level guidance will tell you, hey, there's traffic up ahead. There was just an accident. Maybe curve around this way. You could be literally in an argument with your kids in the car. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Shut up. Not that you should say that to your children, but if you're arguing with your kids in the car, you literally hear the GPS and it's like, your exit is coming up in 1,000 feet. The exit ramp is to the right. Your destination is on the left. That's the kind of guidance that will accelerate your progress in real estate. Okay, I've innovated quite a lot on the things that I've learned over the last 30 years, but the basic systems are pretty well established. So it's not like like I've reinvented the wheel or you have to go out and reinvent the wheel, but I've learned how this wheel runs. And when you can tap into that kind of knowledge and have somebody help you along the way, you get to your goal much more quickly and without nearly as much anxiety. And I'd submit to you that it's even more critical in real estate to have GPS level guidance, a coach. Again, it doesn't have to be me, but somebody who knows what they're doing. It's more important in real estate than it even is driving your car. If you make a mistake driving your car, you lose a little bit of time, you turn around, there's some frustration, aggravation, and you get back on path and go where you're going. You make a mistake in real estate investing, trying to follow the roadmap, you either lose lost opportunity cost, right? Or lost opportunity, the opportunity to have made more money because someone could have shown you how to optimize the deal. You could actually lose real money, and people do all the time, right? When they do things incredibly wrong. I mean, there's even TV shows made about that, right? You could lose your credit. You could you could lose your house. You could lose your spouse. You could lose your dog. It's like a country western song played backwards or something, right? There's a lot of potential loss if you don't get proper guidance. So I'm going to give you this roadmap. The purpose of doing it is to give you an option, right? Not everybody is going to, I mean, it kind of amazes me because it's not very expensive to get coaching. But a lot of people just have the mindset of trying to do everything by themselves, trying to go it alone. They want to go through the school of hard knocks. And if that's the MO, then this will serve as a good roadmap. Frankly, what I'm going to provide you over the next several months is going to contain a lot more substance and a lot more value than programs that cost north of $10,000. And I know because I've spent a tremendous amount of money on my own training over the last 30 years, and I could say 80% of it is pure fluff, pure garbage. The 20% that was good has made me quite a lot of money. And that's why I've been able to curate a very good program for us here. Okay, so that's the first thing that I wanted to say. I just want to couch this, that you go through these 21 weeks. There's going to be a lot of learning that takes place, but you're not really, unless you ask questions, which I encourage you to do, come into the comments, ask questions each week, and I'll try to help you as much as I can from afar, or jump on a Zoom call so we can go through whatever questions that you have. Then you're going to have, some level of crystallization that needs to occur, because there's so many nuances to the different deals that come up that it's really important to have that, again, GPS level guidance. So, okay, so let me ask you a question, kind of jumping into what our framework is for this training. Having said all of that, think of Amazon. Okay, what did Amazon.com, what did Amazon start off as? Okay, Amazon was a bookseller. They sold books. There was concern that they were going to put Borders out of business and Barnes and Noble out of business and regular bookstores, right, out of business. Well, would they have been successful as just a bookstore? Probably so, right? However, what is Amazon today? Amazon can service almost any product need. Whatever you want to buy, including groceries, is available on Amazon. They created a comprehensive, robust offer that puts them in your purview every single day because they can satisfy all of your needs. Okay? The metaphor that I'm trying to create with that is with real estate investing. So many people want to be a bookseller, and I'm equating a bookseller to, I'm just going to go out and get properties at 60 cents on the dollar, and then I'm going to assign the contract. I'm going to be a wholesaler. I'm going to be a bird dog. Or I'm going to notch it up a little bit, and I'm going to be a fixer and flipper. I'm going to follow what those people did on TV. Okay? Let me remind you that in order to be a wholesaler or a fix and flipper, you are almost automatically excluding more than 90% of the market. Why? Because to get a property super cheap relative to its value, it needs not be encumbered by a loan that exceeds your price. So if somebody has a loan at 90, 80, 75% loan to value on the house, you've already excluded that deal. Not in the way that we do business. We buy those deals all day long. We can pay full price and make a ton of money on houses. Not a wholesaler, not a rehabber. Okay, so that's the first hurdle you got to overcome. And that's a big one because there's only a certain percentage of the houses that are free and clear or have a low enough loan to value ratio that you could even buy it for a cheap enough price to make it attractive enough to sign the contract or fix it up and resell it. So that's the first issue. What's the second issue? Well, in case you haven't noticed, it's a pretty doggone hot market for the last few years. People want to get full price. And if you haven't noticed, you can go on the internet and Google the price of your house, the value of your house. There's all kinds of algorithms will feed to you what the value is. In the old days, before Al Gore invented the internet, that's a Ron LeGrand joke. I took it from him. I like that joke. But in the old days, before the internet was around, you really had to be a little bit more speculative about what the value of the property is. There wasn't all this confirmation, and if someone was coming in offering you real cash, you were much more apt to take it than where if I offer someone real cash and then they go look on the internet and see it's worth a lot more money, they're less apt to take it. So first, you got to overcome that hurdle of there being a low amount of financing relative to the value. What's the second hurdle? Like I said, if you haven't noticed, it's a pretty hot market. Not that many people are willing to sell their property at 50, 60, 65, 70 cents on the dollar, right? And you got to do that if you're going to be assigning the contract to somebody else because you got to leave enough money in it for them. And if you're going to do the rehab, you've got to have money to bear the cost of buying the property, the cost of selling the property, the cost of holding the property, and then of course the rehab. There's got to be a lot of room in there. So what I'm suggesting to you is that's fine. We do that. I am a huge advocate of those strategies, but it best not be your only strategy unless you want to be a bookseller, unless you want to be the Amazon bookseller instead of the Amazon of 2022, which allows you to get any product you want. That's, guys, the whole key to what I'm going to show you over the next several months is that we are like the Amazon of house buyers. We can service any seller situation. We can buy any house from any seller in any market and not use any of our own money or credit. Now, does that mean that 100% of the sellers are going to work with you? No, but it does mean, and what I'm telling you is that the only criteria that we have, it's not that there's a low amount of financing and you have to get a low price. Okay? The only criteria we have is that that seller be willing to sell their house. If they're willing to sell their house, they are going to do one of the things that we service, including if they use a realtor and are just going for an owner-occupant buyer. They're going to do one of the things that we service. So what does that mean? That means not 5%, not 10%, playing this numbers game, trying to, just find a needle in a haystack for a wholesale deal or a rehab deal or a bank-owned REO deal, those kinds of things. We'll do those, but that's not the only game. We have 100% of the total addressable market available to us. If they have a house for sale, we can monetize it. So it just becomes a question of what's our conversion ratio going to be? How good are we at talking to the sellers about all of their options? How good are we at understanding those options and then being able to express that to the seller in a persuasive and compelling manner so that they, one, see transparently that we are genuine, we're authentic, we have integrity. That's one of the first things that people are looking for, right? In any kind of a business relationship, even just the buying and selling of a house. They want to know that they can trust you. And that happens when you're not pushing, trying to tell someone their house is worth 50% of what it's worth. Okay, we ask them questions and they end up making us an offer, which I'm going to talk to you all about. And you have to get good at being able to express this. And your conversion ratio will go through the roof. Why? Because 100% of the total addressable market is available to us. There's no deal that we cannot monetize no matter what they do. They're going to do one of the things that we service, and it becomes a matter of asking them questions and then plugging them in to the right track. That's what I'm going to show you how to do. And when you can do that, you kind of sit back and you're much more consultative on the phone with the seller. You don't sound desperate. You don't sound needy. You don't sound like a used car salesperson. You're learning their specific situation, their specific needs with respect to the house, and then you're going to fulfill them one way or another. Or you're not. If you get to choose the deals that you want to work on in this kind of model. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. And so let me kind of frame this here in terms of what the next several weeks will look like. So let me kind of look here because my printer didn't print this thing out. So, okay, so that's the that's the first week. Is I'm going to go. Well, I'm giving you an overview right now. So if you're looking at the email that I sent to you, week 2 is this any house, any seller strategy. Okay, I'm going to cover that in a lot more detail than I just did today. So that's what we're going to go for in week 2, so that you understand how robust this system is, how comprehensive it is, and that you just ask questions and you fit that seller into one of the points along the spectrum, and then that's what they're going to do, and then we do it with them and we monetize that. Okay, so we'll talk about that next week. The following week, we're going to go over the deal structures that consummate these deals. Okay, that might be wholesaling like I talked about. It might be rehabbing if that makes sense, if that's the type of property that you're looking at. It might be creating some kind of a seller financing structure where the seller is getting a full price from us, but they have to be a little bit patient in getting it. And maybe they don't want to deed us the house until they've been paid in full. So we'll rent the property from them for a period of time until we exercise an option to buy the house from them. Maybe there is some sort of a hybrid. Maybe they just want to get cashed out right away. Maybe they're willing to discount it a little, but not enough to really satisfy us to come in and buy it for cash. Maybe there's some terms we like, some terms we don't like. We've got structures for all of these that I'm going to go through with you during that week. Now, what generally happens when you learn through video or through course materials or through reading books is that there's some gaps. There's some questions, right? Well, I've had the luxury of coaching quite a lot of folks, and I know the questions that come up as we go through strategy and as we go through deal structure. So what I've done is I've created sort of a training that fills in all those gaps, all the little nuances. Like, when do we ask for there to be a due on sale clause on a loan, and when do we ask that there not be a due on sale clause on the loan? When do we use a wraparound mortgage versus taking a property subject to the existing debt where we're just taking over payments? When do we use what kind of an agreement do we use when we're buying on a lease purchase versus when we're selling on a lease with an option to buy? They're different, right? So we're going to go through that in that week. I'm looking at my sheet here. So week 5 is so I'm taking you through 21 of these just so you can gauge where we're at. But don't worry, I won't go long. I'll get us out of here, 10 minutes or so. So the investor and realtor synergy. Look, folks, investors and realtors are kind of like cats and dogs in a way, right? I'm taking care of somebody's dogs right now. She lives down the street, and she's got cats in there. Cats and dogs, they're left alone. They get along just fine. Can't we all just get along? Realtors and investors can get along, and I'm telling you right now that if you don't have a realtor on your team, or better, go get a realtor license yourself. You think it's a disadvantage as an investor? It's not a disadvantage. It's an advantage as an investor, because you have the credibility that comes along with being able to say that you have to operate within a compliance framework, within a regulatory framework. Okay, there can be a lot more trust in what I'm telling you I'm going to do because I'm licensed. I'm a licensed professional. I'm not trying to list your house. I'm going to buy it, but I still have to operate within this framework as a licensed realtor. I recommend you guys go get the license. It's so easy to do. That's why every Tom, Dick, and Harry has a realtor license. And most of them, let's be honest, one of the reasons that we don't like realtors as investors, generally speaking, is most of them suck. They suck bad. They don't know jack. You know what I mean? They're usually part-time realtors. They're like a teacher in the school year and they're a realtor in the summer, or a fireman, working a couple days a week and then be doing the realtor stuff later. Those kinds of things. Okay, although I do happen to know a fireman who's a very good realtor. However, the majority of people are doing this as like kind of a part-time thing. And as a result, they don't have the dedication, the professionalism that you might like to see, which gives you a huge competitive advantage. When you understand the investor piece and you have a realtor license and you're approaching sellers from the standpoint of trying to buy their house, how much easier do you think it is to list their house? Once they, versus calling, hey, I can sell your house better than anyone else. You ought to sign up with me. That approach starts to irritate for sale by owner sellers very, 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 very quickly. But when you're calling as a buyer, and if you can't buy it from them in a way that makes sense for us, and then you fall back into realtor mode, you've already developed a rapport, you've shown trust, you've shown expertise, and you can pick up listings. The realtor clients in my group, they absolutely dominate. So that's what we're going to talk about then. Okay, now this, it's huge, right? In week 6, the master script for seller calls. I'm literally going to go through word for word a script with y'all that is platinum. Now, you don't have to say it word for word, but you just got to get the gist and the order of which we bring up various concepts and say certain things. And as we do that, if you can memorize it, if you can just talk to it, you're going to put yourself ahead of 99% of investors because this script is a moneymaker. Now, I also encourage folks who are willing to put, a little bit of delegation into their business, pay people a little bit of money, not much, right? VAs are not very expensive. Virtual assistants, executive assistants are not very expensive for what you get. I've also got a script that I'm going to go through with you in week 7 that talks about how we use executive assistants, okay? How we use them to leverage our time and our treasure so that we can make a lot more money with a lot less hassle. That's what everybody wants, right? Everyone wants to make money, but they don't really want to have to put a lot of work into it. Not that you're not willing to work, but once you've done it and you got it, it's better to sometimes to get other people to do it for you because then you can scale into other things and spend your time doing the things that bring you joy, okay? Now, after that, in week 8, the intangibles. I'm going to talk about what your mojo is, what kind of vibe you give off. I listen to seller calls and I have investors call me and it's just a bad vibe. Okay, we need to talk about your vibe. We need to talk about how you roll, how you come across, how you do's what it is that you do's. Okay, that's what we're going to get into during that week. More or less your posture as a real estate investor. Okay, and then now, very importantly, where is the deal made? The deal is made on the telephone, on the cell phone, right? That's where the deal is made. It's not in the fancy marketing. It's not in the website that you created. It's in the deal making with the seller, which happens by phone. And it's not reading a script and then they sign on the dotted line. There's a give and take. There's a dialogue that occurs. Okay, so you have to know what to say when they say this, what to say when they say that, how to respond to this question and this objection. So I'm going to cover 4 full weeks across over 30 different questions and objections that come up. There isn't going to be anything that you'd be able to bring that isn't contained within that 4-week set of questions. I've heard them all. If somebody finds a new one, I'll be amazed. And maybe it's a cousin to one that I already have. But anything that you can possibly hear from the seller question-wise, well, what if the guy tears up my house? You're not going to be living there? Well, what if they don't qualify for the loan at the end of the time? Well, how do I know you're going to pay me? Well, what if the bank calls the loan due? Well, how can I trust you? Well, how can I if I don't get my money out of this, how can I get another house? All those kinds of things we're going to talk about, right? Those things come up. You got to know how to answer those. So that takes us all the way through week 12. Okay, then week 13, 14, 15, and 16 is going to be a little more boring, yet important. We have to memorialize these deals with paperwork, right? So when we're buying a property, we got to understand how to put the paperwork together. Okay, so I'm going to go through ownership paperwork. Sometimes we'll control the property through a lease with an option to buy it. Okay, that's a different set of paperwork. I'm going to explain how you deal with that. We also are going to be selling properties. We got to put paperwork together for buyers. I'm doing that right after this call for a buyer. Not a great deal, but a decent deal, 20 grand down, $2,300 a month, and a price that is about $50,000 higher than what I paid for the property. So, I don't get that money until way down the line probably, but we'll see. So I'm going to show you how to deal with buyers with respect to that. Okay, so that takes us, and then sometimes you'll plan on buying the property directly from the seller and then selling it directly to your buyer. But in finding the buyer, you will sometimes come across a buyer where it makes more sense to just link the buyer up directly with the seller. And if you don't have a realtor license, that's problematic because you can't broker real estate. So there's a way that we get around that I'm going to share with you in week 16. Okay, so from there, you've got a lot of the deal-making skills. But what you need from there is to understand how to attract leads. So I'm going to go through all the various organic lead sources that you can use that allow you to get really good on the phone with sellers because you didn't pay for any of these leads. So that's called organic lead generation. I'm going to show you how to do all that. And then in week 18, I'm going to go through what is easily the number one lead generation method in the industry. There's nobody generating leads at the level that we are with this strategy. I'm going to show you exactly how we do that then. And then we use a very similar strategy to that in generating seller leads with buyers. But with buyers, there's a three-pronged attack, which I'm gonna go through to attract buyers. They'll be clamoring for your property. If you think it's a hot market among bank qualified owner-occupant type buyers, think about the exponential difference between just that market and the market that includes those who have money but they don't qualify for a loan because they're a new business owner. They switched jobs. They went through a divorce. They've got some kind of credit issue. They've got something in their history that needs to be fixed before a bank will lend them money. There's tons of those people out there, and there's a low inventory of good housing for them. They're relegated to an apartment. They don't want to live in an apartment. They're relegated to a rental house. They don't want to live in a rental house. They want a nice house that we get for them, that we can sell them on a lease, give them a little bit of time. We give them an option to buy it while we help them fix their credit and get the bank loan to come in to buy it. They'll pay a premium for that. Tons of those people, and I'm going to show you where to get them. Okay? Then I'm going to, I'm smiling and pausing a little bit on this because I don't like to tell people what to do with their money, right? However, we are in a very, very distorted economy right now that is largely built on central bank money printing, and it has ramifications, macroeconomic ramifications, that I don't have the timing in terms of when certain things are going to happen, but there will be a price to pay for the sins of today and the past of central bankers and creating this huge wealth disparity and penalizing savers and rewarding risk takers and the super inflated asset prices that are out there in various stock classes, including real estate potentially, and other classes. So I'm going to have a conversation with you because you're going to make a lot of money doing this if you follow the program about maybe where you should put that money. The wrong place to put the money is into real estate. You don't have to. We don't use any of our own money or our own credit. There's no need to do that. Okay, but you got to put the money somewhere, right? So we're going to talk about that. And then after that, I'm going to give you guys a nice recap of everything. We'll tie a pretty bow on it, and then you guys can go out, do your thing. I'll be available to you as much as I can in the group to help. And of course, if you want that GPS level guidance, then you jump on a Zoom call and we get down that way. Okay? I kept y'all a little bit long, But I certainly appreciate you spending the Saturday, whether it's Saturday afternoon where you are or Saturday morning. I appreciate y'all being on here. Let me know in the chat box if you have any questions or you need anything from me. Jump on a Zoom call if you like. Otherwise, I will catch up with you next Saturday at the same time, same place. Appreciate y'all. See you guys. Bye now.